my colleague just mentioned about drones. One of the successes of the last 6 to 12 months for Ukraine has been their use of drones in the Black Sea to push back the Russian Navy. And I'm wondering if you could talk to us about what U.S. industry can do with our allies, not just Ukraine, but Estonia, Poland, to double down on investments in maritime autonomous drones for use in establishing maritime supremacy and freedom of navigation in the Black Sea, but ultimately in the Indo-Pacific as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, Representative. I mean, I think that the level of innovation, drone innovation in Ukraine is astounding. Like they use drones for everything all the time. They have a burgeoning industry there. I think the most important thing for us to do is to recognize that, and the products that are being used on the front lines in Ukraine are the ones that are going to mature the fastest and be the most competitive on the global stage. So, you know, I think the opportunity is to surge in and supply U.S.-made products to the Ukrainians to help them in their fight against Russia, and also force our products to be on the leading edge of technology and competition.
It seems like doing that requires sort of this threading together of capital, expertise, and then the sort of the living laboratory to get feedback loops about what's working and what's not. Of those three things, what are we missing right now? I think we got enough money, right? But is it the expertise? Is it the feedback loops from the battlefield to the technologists?
I mean, the question I would ask is the money aimed at the right thing? I mean, there's a lot of money available to fund supplies for Ukraine. To date, very little of that has gone towards drones.
Yeah,
and
the Pentagon's replicator program is not funded, right?
I mean, I think it's funded at a very low level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's a lot of momentum and sort of talk about we need more small, smart, attritable systems. I think putting the dollars towards systems going to Ukraine is what I see the best opportunity to make that real.
I've heard that repeatedly. We're not putting the advanced market commitments down for actual swarms of drones, maritime and aerial. We got to get serious about actually buying these things at scale.
Yeah, I think I'd buy them at scale and send them to Ukraine.
Yep. Let me pivot here and talk about AI for a minute. I don't think any of us know what AI is going to look like in a decade in terms of its capabilities or its implementations. But one thing I think we can have increasing confidence about from listening to people on the cutting edge of the technology and the investors is that it's going to require an unbelievable amount of compute and an unbelievable amount of energy. We're talking like 20% of current U.S. electricity needs just for compute clusters. We're talking about trillion-dollar clusters necessary. My friend, Mr. Connor from California, has talked a lot about making sure that America's tech progress is more evenly distributed across the country, that everyone can partake in the productivity gains that are coming from the tech sector. This seems like a very clear-cutting example about how we could do that, right? If we need unbelievable amounts of compute, each one probably powered by a nuclear reactor, frankly, that should probably be domiciled here in the United States. I don't know that we want to have that overseas. What can we be doing right now to be building out these clusters here in the United States that are going to require huge amounts of steel, that are going to require huge amounts of energy, huge amounts of expertise? And Dr. Miller, maybe you take the first crack at that, and then Mr. Paul.
Well, thank you for the question, Representative. I think you're absolutely right that building out compute clusters is going to be key to our future technological advances and prosperity. On the compute side, I think chip companies know what to do. The energy side is the challenge. We're going to see the first energy growth, power consumption growth in the U.S. for the first time in decades, and it'll be driven by bigger data centers for AI applications. And that means we need more power and also the transmission to bring power to the data centers that require it. I think this is a
Do we need the transmission, or do we just need to be able to co-locate nuclear, either fission or maybe ultimately fusion?
I think the number of places where you can co-locate next to nuclear today is quite limited.
Will the ADVANCE Act help with that, do you think?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Mr. Paul?
I do think, in addition to what Mr. Miller suggested, that it's also worth looking at the right kind of performance requirements that we have, as you suggested, so that we're maximizing the investment that we're making that will benefit other industries, such as the construction of them and the energy provision. So there's a number of means to do that. I think that there's a helpful guide in some of the CHIPS Act that we can utilize in some of the other procurement preferences that we've identified through clean energy and other programs that have been scaled up over the last couple of years.
Final question, Dr. Miller, do you think that these compute clusters, should we be doing these in conjunction with our European and East Asian allies, or do we want to have a heavy bias towards U.S. domiciled clusters?
I think U.S. technology firms have always succeeded because they've had access to international markets. That doesn't mean every market, but for close allies, I don't see a reason why we should be worried about trading with them.
Yield back.
Representative Newhouse.
Thank you, Chairman Molinar and Ranking Member Krishnamurthy. Thank our guests for being here today, and very important subject. I want to start with you, Dr. Miller. Think